But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications options. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatterspodcast1892@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you,
good evening, welcome along to NUFC Matters. It is the three amigos, the perfect way to kickstart your boring international weekend. And as always, joined by Steve, Mitch and George. No Joe tonight, he's stuck at work and his car's in service, so he's having a week off. But yes, as always, plenty to get through, your usual tweet of the week. And a little surprise as well from us. We have done quite a few things over the Christmas period for charity. Well, we've got another thing up our sleeve tonight. The lads don't know what it is, but we will reveal all tonight, and you will be able to help from Monday onwards. So more to come a little bit later on. We're going to start tonight, as always, an unplanned show on NUFC Matters. It's the way we like it. But in the WhatsApp group that we're in, we've been chatting about tickets. And don't worry, it's not something that is going to get on your wick. It's not about... it's not the story about the lottery to get a ticket or whatever like that. It's something which Mitch and Steve and George have more or less stumbled across today because of an issue that George had with his account. Mitch, I'll let you tell the people out there, because we felt it would be handy for people who may come across something that they don't understand, and you can give a first-hand experience of it today.
Well, yeah, I had to update my dad's payment details because his card got blocked again. I don't know how many massage parlours in Luxembourg he visits these days, but they keep trying to take money off his account.
Was Poland this time, Neil?
Poland this time, wasn't it? Yes, sorry. And so he's clearly not in Poland. My dad being my dad, obviously he likes to get things done right, and so he says, is there any chance you can help with it? So I got the email, going to the site to update his details, and what I noticed there was on a platform that was a nufc.seatgeek. It wasn't the usual box office platform that I remember going on when I've done this before, and that made me think, oh, hang on a minute, when did this happen? When did we switch over? So a little bit of quick digging. SeatGeek not only are secondary ticket providers, they provide premier sort of frontline ticketing services for many sports teams, including Man United and Liverpool. So we've obviously gone down what must be the new industry standard, perhaps. But seeing the word SeatGeek associated with it was just a little bit of a surprise to us. I thought, well, hang on a minute, aren't they secondary ticketing sellers? Well, yes, they are, but apparently for many sports clubs, they're also primary ticket sellers. So there you go. Every day's a school day from my part. But what I thought, like you, was anybody else seeing that like me who wasn't aware of it might get a bit like surprised, because I was.
Yeah.
Now then, Steve reminded us, obviously, within the last 5 minutes that they reported that there'd been, was it 52,000 bot attacks, Steve?
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
And it's wording here, the way it was worded in the minutes, you know, reported 52,000 bot attacks from SeatGeek. That sounds like SeatGeek are attacking the ticketing platform. But my thoughts are, has switching to the SeatGeek ticketing platform made the ticketing platform a bit more safe, i.e., they're better equipped to deal with bot attacks and people trying to get hold of tickets illegally, because they obviously do it for so many other people and are secondary sellers themselves. So I find that all very interesting move, and might make sense of a little bit of a nonsense, because it really sounded in those minutes, and I agree with Steve when we talked about it very briefly there, that it sounded like SeatGeek were having a go at Newcastle, and it's not. It sounds like since we swapped over to them, we've been able to identify far more problems than they could on their own, which that, for once, here's me saying, well done, ticket office. You know, where details need to be kept safe, your payment platform needs to be decent, and most importantly, that needs to be something that means that people on the secondary market can't get hold of tickets. Now, one question remains. As secondary ticketing sellers, do they have access to tickets as part of an agreement to be the primary ticketing seller? Because if they are the primary ticketing seller for most Premier League clubs, their platform will be selling tickets on the secondary market, no doubt. Where do those tickets come from? So it does raise another ticketing problem or question. But certainly something I just thought it was worth mentioning, because it gave me a little bit of a start, and then I started thinking, shit, have I clicked on the wrong thing? Am I in the wrong part of the? It just was totally different to the usual box office platform that I was used to accessing.
Steve, what was your feelings on this? Yeah, we had a little chat, as I say, in the WhatsApp group earlier about it. Just share your thoughts.
Yeah, the way I read it was that it was SeatGeek that were doing the attacking. I didn't read it, because it's quite ambiguous. I didn't read it that SeatGeek had identified 52,000. It was just in the minutes it just said 52,000 attacks from SeatGeek. So whether that was notified by them or not, or whether the attacks came directly from SeatGeek, it was difficult to tell. Now, perhaps, as Mitch says, perhaps with the secondary selling and with other options, perhaps SeatGeek have a facility to be able to identify the resellers, so that the people that are reselling or trying to resell. It seemed, as though when you read the rest of the minutes, I think there was comments from the head of ticketing, the head of one of the other departments, promotions, I think, and also from Silverstone, stating that there were, if, for example, you had been identified and it had gone red on your account that the ticket had been through a third party and you shouldn't have got it, they couldn't refund you the money. But what they could do is they could allow you to buy that ticket off them legitimately. They couldn't arrange the refund from wherever you bought the original ticket, but they would allow you to say to the club, or the club would allow you to or they were offering, give us the face value of the ticket. So not only have you paid possibly over committed, which you're going to have to chase with whoever it was that you bought the ticket from, but the club were then going to sell you that ticket back at the standard price. Unless, of course, it was really a fraud and 4, 5 or 6 people had all been sold that ticket through a bot or through whatever, a con, in which case you couldn't buy the ticket because they didn't know which one of the half a dozen or how many people had purchased the ticket and who was the first one in the queue or whatever. So at that point, it was cancelled. And if they could identify that it was a season ticket holder or a member, they would immediately suspend the member's account, the season ticket holder's account, who sold the ticket on in the first place through the third party or second party, as Mitch called it. service because the club are wanting you to direct all resale and repurchasing through themselves, which is probably through SeatGeek, to tell you the truth, because if they're running the platform. So it's so ambiguous. It's very difficult to tell. It's, what is the role of SeatGeek, or is it just the software provider and the platform that Newcastle United sit on, and Newcastle United manage the whole thing, or is it managed on behalf of SeatGeek or what? I just couldn't tell. I was quite surprised when it cropped up, and I did a little bit of sort of, as you would do, Google searches, and a number of fans who had said, "Oh, yeah, I spotted that a fortnight ago. I've never seen that before," in exactly the same way as Mitch has stated. It was a surprise to him. So, who knows? If anybody's from the club is watching the show, perhaps they, or if somebody from the Fab is watching the show, perhaps they might like to bring it up and give us a little bit more clarification next time they're in conversation with the club. So, yeah, who knows?
Some interesting comments coming in from people in the chat. Phil Scott says, coincidentally, today I had to update my payment method as a new debit card. Followed steps, no success, emailed supporter services, reply in 30 minutes and very helpful. Turns out I'd selected all cup tickets instead of only Carabao, so I am sorted. Mozza says, SeatGeek keep blocking me as I scroll too fast to be a human. You wait an hour, then you get back in. And then we've got Ben P. He says, Steve H., they wouldn't suspend the members' account. I sent details of this to Mitch a while back. They're not interested in doing that.
Well, if you go to the Fab meeting minutes, I can sit and read them out if you want.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, it said that when it comes to home tickets, the club stated that this season ticket 52,000 bot attacks from SeatGeek. That was the first bit. It then carries on to say, where is it? Scrolling through. If a supporter ends up under investigation when a ticket goes red, the supporter will lose money and they won't get their money back. The club will then know who they are because the tickets go red, with the report coming to the club, which would lead to consequences to the original ticket holder / purchasing supporter, as noted below. And it said, if a fan comes to a home game and a ticket they purchased from a third-party site has been touted, the club will therefore cancel the ticket once it has been identified as sold by a tout. After cancelling it, they would then allow the supporter the chance to buy the ticket at face value so that they would then become the legal buyer of that ticket. Once they have bought the ticket, the club will provide them with information on how they can attempt to claim their money back. It then says the head of ticketing, Chris Parkinson, added that this is only possible once, and therefore, if the same seat has been resold on multiple times, then we can't resell them the seat that they have purchased as someone else has now purchased it legitimately. We will still provide information to those people on how they can claim their money back. The banning punishment is the season ticket is cancelled and the membership cancelled indefinitely. So that's the person who sold the ticket, or whose ticket it's appearing. That instead of selling the ticket on through the club's official website or official ticketing site, they have decided to do it through a third party and probably at an overinflated price. Mr. Silverstone, Chief Commercial Officer Peter Silverstone, reassured that the club do say it often, or do see it often, but perhaps it's not sufficiently publicised that we've banned people. It is explained that supporters will lose money and not be allowed in, but the message can get lost when fans see others being successfully getting around the rules. There you go.
And that is pretty contradictory to the correspondence Ben shared with me.
Correct.
There we go. Worth bringing this up tonight.
I'm not going to go, Ben, by the way. This is an example of again, the ambiguity and the sort of misinformation that sometimes ekes its way out from various parts of the club, whether you're talking to Mr. Silverstone, whether you're talking to whoever it was, Mr. Parkinson, or whether you're talking to somebody on the phone at a particular time, you're going to get conflicting info. So certainly not having to go at you, mate.
No, good stuff. Thank you for sharing that. George, what's your feelings on that? I had to mute you, George, because we're getting a bit of feedback. I know you're testing your new equipment today.
That's all right.
We're getting a bit of feedback. But go on, mate.
Well, I mean, more by accident than design for me today, because I had to respond to a request from them about my payment system. And of course, when I do that, I have to talk to Neil because I handle both our tickets. I look after our tickets. There's one bit about me relatively pleased we're involved with SeatGeek, because this is no small fry company. This is a company that's dealing with, by the sound of it, nearly every Premier League club. But they don't just deal with football either. They deal with all sorts of tickets. So that means to me, as an ordinary fan, they know what they're doing. The software and the protection will be top class. I mean, and it's got confirmed by the fact we're now seeing, as the lads have just said, they've already identified 52,000 attempts to interfere with ticketing at Newcastle United, which is what that says to me. So I'm, in a sense, having got involved in it by accident rather than by design, it's made me a bit more confident about how things are handled, because the number of times over the years we've sat on here and debated about the ticketing system in the club and how it was operated and who did what and all the rest of it. Well, that's gone. That's now SeatGeek. So that there's nobody to shout at the club now, because it's all handled by a very, very capable and professional organisation that, as I say, deals with tickets not just for football but for almost every other sort of event. So if they can handle that, fine. It's the only thing left for me to whinge about in the future is still the odd things about how we organise away tickets and so on. Otherwise, by accident, I've discovered something which I think is an improvement for Newcastle United. So well done, SeatGeek.
Yeah, the days of Jan in the ticket office are long gone. So we're now moving forward and using a system which other clubs are using. So we'll see what happens with that. I want to talk a little bit about a bit of overreaction I've seen from a few channels and people on social media, Mitch, about the stadium announcement. And when I say a stadium announcement, I'm not saying that we've got a new stadium. It's the fact that we are going to be in the Euros. We're going to stage the Euros games. I think we've got 5 games, which is great because it means that we are the Northeast representative in 2028. They've chosen our ground. And, I take an immense amount of pride in the fact that our ground is used. That seems to have led some people on social media to suggest that means we're not getting a new ground now. You couldn't be any further from the truth, could you? I mean, that is completely misleading, and that's the kind of thing which will build a bit of momentum, I would imagine, over the weekend, because it's in an international break. I mean, it'll mean that we won't see as many Tonali's going to AC Milan stories, but we'll probably say that we're not going to get a stadium now because of 2028. And Steve Hasty reminded me that I did this once with Floyd Mayweather. If I did a Floyd Mayweather gig at the City Hall, and I deliberately asked him a question about the takeover at Newcastle. Would you still be interested in buying it? And it went global. He had no interest in buying the club. But this is the kind of thing that will gain momentum in a quiet week, Mitch. That's what I'm trying to say. And it couldn't be further from the truth.
And also, Sean Custis at the Sun's been stirring this week.
Oh, yes.
Saying that, we're not priority in Saudi, that the boxing and golf take priority over Newcastle United. And that's why there's no training ground, why there's no word about a new ground or a refurb at St James's Park. So it's sort of already, embers have been lit in places. The word to Sean, your mate's dad's no longer the chairman of the club, and so you've got to look for your stories like a proper journalist now, kiddo. And so, just because you're not getting the exclusives and you've not got somebody whispering in your ear, doesn't mean there's things happening or things not happening. Talk to the people who live in Saudi. Steve Bennett's probably watching the 90s in Riyadh at the minute. They'd tell you, we're still in the malls, we're still plastered over, the advertising hoardings. You still see we're in association with everything that seller does. because we're front sponsor, you know, involved in every bit of the promotion for the boxing and the golf and beyond and everything else they're trying to do. Because we've been added to the list for the Euros, the wording, if you really want to pick at stuff, the wording associated with the announcement was that the FA had been assured that St James's Park would still be standing and functional. That doesn't actually say Newcastle United are playing in it, by the way. But I think any new ground would be all of 3 years before we were even in a place to go into it, I would imagine. Bearing in mind what I've said earlier this week about my feelings about Newcastle City Council, and you all know what my feelings are, is that the weak link in all of this is relying on the cooperation of the Newcastle City Council, who've just wasted thousands on a bullion case legally, which has now suddenly dropped and disappeared. They've had somebody who was in one position making financial decisions who decided to buy the Copthorne Hotel, who's now on the board of the company that owns the Copthorne Hotel, strangely. You know, and all of these, there's been all sorts going on there. They're never interested in really anything other than self-interest, and they're never interested in wider things until voting times come around. And that's why I have very little faith in what goes on with the council. This recent thing about, well, we've gone from one extreme to the other, by the way. Oh, we've asked for a freedom of information report about measures, mentions of Leazes Park and Newcastle United and new football ground in emails, and they've refused to list them because there's so many. Well, either something's happening or something isn't. Yet the press are flip-flopping from one extreme to another. And if you're putting stuff out, whinging, saying, well, that's no ground for us, then all you're doing is piling more wood onto a bonfire. The section of the fan base who really seem to want to believe that PIF are not interested, that they don't want to invest money, and that it's all about they're going to drop at the drop of a hat. Yes, they've had a bad summer. I think somebody somewhere needs to be accountable for the lack of leadership and direction and action that wasn't taken over the summer, because it has derailed our season. Let's make no bones about that. Why we're not riding the crest of confidence that we were, and why we're having to adapt the play, is because we don't have certain players. I can't believe people are also critical about the Wissa signing. That's an injury. It happens in football. Nobody could have foreseen that happening. And that we've now got people saying he's a dud and he's a waste of money. Well, he got injured. Does he want to be injured? I bet he doesn't. You know, and we touched briefly when we did our impromptu thing through the week about other things going on and other players who are being viewed as, you know, as a flop already. What happened to supporting people and what happened to getting behind everything? Football, you know, everything you could have would be gone tomorrow. And it sounds like that's what some people want. Do you want Ashley back? Tell you what, no, let's have a chance like John Texter. Let's have him come in and see what happens to our football club then. You know, you can be negative and moan about no new training ground this and no new stadium that. All of these things are not wholly and solely PIF's own decision. There's other partners that have to be brought in, and it all has to be done under the shroud of NDAs, and there'll be things happening and being discussed that you just can't. You're not going to get stuff out. It's not like the old Newcastle United. Gibbo can't go around to the chairman's office and have a cup of tea with somebody and pick their brains and have them blab everything out. Alan Oliver can't go around and be fed stories to put out to the press. It's not happening like that anymore. Those days are long, long gone. And if anybody wants to know how different it is now, I had 2 journalists reach out to me when the news about Silverstone wasn't quite news yet, to ask if I knew anything. Because the sources just aren't doing, what they used to do. I don't understand why there seems to be a section of our fan base seem to want PIF to walk away. They seem to want to be right, that it was all a charade and it was all this and that and the other. And that really is a slap in the face to Eddie Howe and everything he worked for, slap in the face to players like Kieran Trippier, who come in when we were on the bones of our arse, to Bruno, who come in when he had no business coming into Newcastle United at that time, but he did. And people who stuck with were players like Fabian Schär, who, and Shaw and Lascelles were our centre-back pairing in the Championship, for God's sakes. And look at it, they're now in the Champions League again. Yes, this season got off to a terrible start. My pre-season was wrecked and ruined, and I would love somebody to stand up and take some responsibility for that, because everybody's pointing fingers in the other direction. It's like the Spider-Man meme with everybody pointing at everybody else.
Yeah.
That's not right. They need criticised when they get things wrong. And they cannot hide behind being the new owners anymore, because they're not. You've been here long enough. You're the owners. It's on you. And yes, we need to be able to criticise them and Eddie when he gets things wrong. This last couple of weeks have been pretty damn awful on the pitch. But equally, Eddie's had questions to answer before, and he's given what answers. And so let's see how it unwinds. And the same with the ownership, and the same with what's going on with what we would like, and how it then unwinds. Only time will tell. But to question that commitment, and to then turn it into something that you're going to get a load of engagement and clicks from, because you're going to be a bit sensational and wet the bed in public, I'm not having it. I really feel quite disappointed, because some of the people doing that have had access to all sorts on the back of the club. One of them was trying to advertise holidays to Saudi not so long ago. We'll never be doing that again.
I've got to agree with you. Before I come to you, Steve, I just think really, you have to remember who was against the takeover, for starters. And I'm not saying everybody who is coming out and creating some of these myths and exaggerating stories or making stories up are anti-Saudi, but some of them are. Some of them didn't want it, and you're right. Some of these people don't want Saudi ownership. They didn't want Saudi ownership, and they would love it to go pear-shaped, and they would love them to walk away, and it probably start talking about fan ownership again. That's just the kind of tin pot world some of these people live in. But yeah, look, our job on here, I always say, is to be sensible and not to lead people up the garden path.
Steve Bennett in Riyadh's just dropped us a message.
Mm-hmm.
We're at the Boulevard last night as part of the start of Riyadh season. Seller and NUFC placed strategically and advertised all around. Still very much at the forefront of Saudi thoughts here.
There you go. It's from a man.
Walking around with any form of NUFC clothing makes instant conversations, including at the border and passport control. They are fully invested, I have no doubt.
And that's from the horse's mouth. Straight off somebody from the ring side there. And Al-Walid does always say the same as well. So there we go. Hopefully that's put a few people's minds at rest. Yeah, Steve, it's an interesting comment. Lots of people in the chat suggesting that people just do it for clickbait. Well, they do. That's what they do it for.
Yeah, I mean, let's take that little bit that finished off on. I mean, the sort of anti-Saudi rhetoric of 4 years ago has now drifted into 4 years later. Some people suddenly, because the club isn't getting the results on the pitch, into a conflicted situation again. I think there's a few of them conflicted now. I think they've got behind the fact that we're Saudi owned, but now when things are, according to various people, starting to derail, they're now going, oh yeah, maybe I was wrong, and I think they're a little bit conflicted, and it's probably I don't know how to describe it. That I'm not saying that immature or anything like that. I just feel as though that they just haven't grasped the thing that they're now hedging. They're a bit like sort of dealers in the marketplace. They're hedging their bets. They're now looking for an escape route if things don't go right. And I think sometimes that does happen in the press. They'll a situation will occur, they'll be fully behind it, and you see it in politics all the time, and then all of a sudden something crops up, and they're at the jugular because it's flavour of the month to do that, or it's joining the bandwagon, if you like. On the ground situation, Steve, and the Euros, I mean, I think we can go back, if we wanted to, 12 to 18 months when the announcement was made that the Euros were going to be in England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, and the Republic. It was stated then that Newcastle United were going to be one of the select grounds. We knew that it was going to happen because there was nothing else around. We did say on this platform that meant that St James's Park would be still in one piece. It would still be there. The games were still going to be played at St James's Park. And the reason we said it was because we knew that it was a long-term project for to rebuild St James's Park or to build a new ground. We said it was a 10-year project. I remember uttering those words myself. Up to 10 years before we would get into a new location at Leazes Park, if that was necessary, because of the logistics, because of the very fact that there would be various planning permissions to go, the sheer size and volume of the ground that they're wanting to build, all the new technology, and this ground was going to be the showcase that was going to take us up towards 2034 and the World Cup in Saudi Arabia. And the whole rebuild for St James's Park was more than likely going to be earmarked for around about 2030, 2031, 2032 onwards. So I'm not surprised. I didn't expect the Euros to be played anywhere else than St James's Park. Perfectly fits. What else can we say? The rest of it, I mean, Newcastle's ills, if you like. And Mitch mentioned there a close season. I think it went back earlier than that. I think the problems that we're ensuing go back to just after the cup final. And I think then the immediate end of season departure of Mitchell tells you something was going on. Something wasn't right. And I don't think that the internal mechanisms and machinations of our football club have been aligned since then. We lost Mitchell, we've lost Eales, now we lost Silverstone. They were the three people that were running the football club. That tells you an awful lot, doesn't it? We've got Hopkinson that come in. We've now only, within the last month, got Ross Wilson coming in as a sporting director, stroke director of football. We haven't got a commercial director anymore. Nobody's been appointed. So it tells you that there's a transition, and this coincides with Hopkinson's 100 days, getting my feet under the table, but he's making decisions as he goes, as was talked about on the professionals last week, as was talked about on this show, on the Amigos platform as well. So I'm not surprised, one iota. I just feel as though that the results that we're seeing now are possibly inflicted by what has happened, going way back until probably March, April, May, and all that disruption that we've had and subsequently ensued. If I have a criticism, it would be because it looks as though, from our friends in the press, who we'll have to believe because they know, they're the ones with all the sources, that Isak was heading off. He was definitely leaving. why did it take us so long? Who was responsible for the transfer dealings? Why did it take so long to get Wissa? The very fact that Wissa's in the same situation as Isak's in now, injured, not available for his club. Both of them allegedly went on strike, weren't training, all of these type of things. You know, this is why we're struggling. And is it a coincidence that Liverpool are struggling too, round up at the same time with some of their results? Who knows? Mitch mentioned about the corridors at St James's Park. I'll give you an example. I remember we've been talking with John Anderson, and Ando mentioned that at one point, I think it was Jim Smith was the manager at the time, and he said, Sunderland want to buy you. And he went down and, you know, he had a word, and he didn't really want to go to Sunderland, had no intention of signing. His wife thought it would be great, and he did point out to her that they would need barbed wire around the house if they stayed, because her opinion was, well, you can just stay in the house and you can go and play for Sunderland instead. So he made a phone call apparently to John Gibson, who then made a phone call up the line. And 3 days later, Jim Smith was sacked. And Ando stayed for at least another 2, if not 3 years. So just goes to show, doesn't it? You know, that was, and I'd love to hear Gibbo maybe when he's next on next Thursday. You might mention that, because that's I think people need to remember the way that it was in the past, and I'm sure Gibbo can explain how it is now for some of the younger lads who are covering Newcastle United for the Chronicle. You know. But yeah, it's all changed, isn't it? It's all changed. So my opinion is we were never going to get a stadium in short enough time for it to be open. I think, if I remember rightly, UEFA's rules are that and it's the same with FIFA, any new ground that's being built has to be up and running within at least 18 months ahead of a competition anyway. So, you know, it was never going to be, we'll get a ground up and running and it'll be ready a week beforehand. And, you know, that's just not the way.
I think that goes back to problems with the grounds in Rio.
Yeah.
For the World Cup in Brazil. And some of them literally had paint drying in them. Yep. As the first games were being, as the fans were being let in for the first game. So yeah, right. I think there are regulations now for big tournaments, and the wording of the announcement I find very peculiar.
Yeah, and wasn't that why the Germans got 2006, because they already had the infrastructure in place? You know, and I think it was going to go elsewhere, and then they got it, and you know, we were in for it as well. And then it went to South Africa, and if you remember, South Africa was a nightmare. Those grounds in exactly the same situation as then happened with Brazil. It's just the way things happen, I suppose. But no, it was never going to be a brand new stadium wherever Newcastle United decide to plonk themselves down. It was always going to be at St James's Park.
George, what's your feelings on this little subject?
Well, it's a dangerous thing coming to delusional George, isn't it, on a subject like this? I mean, you know, it's encouraged with George today, because that's me saying I'm going to be delusional about Newcastle United for the rest of the bloody life. I have been for 80 years. I'm not going to change now. But the people who write these things and say these things about the Euros, and saying it points to this and points to that, they're the sort of people who just don't want to be wrong, do they? Because if we hadn't been awarded those games, guess what they would be saying? Oh, that means Saudis are going to go away. And we've got them now, so they're still going to say, well, it's because the Saudis are going to go away. Absolute drivel. Just don't want to be wrong. They just don't want to be wrong, and they don't. And for somehow they've got this ingrained sense of failure for Newcastle United. And we really don't need them. Go away. Wake up, smell the coffee. If I want to be proud of Newcastle, I just look what other people say about it. Look at the rugby league lads that come for Magic Weekend. They took it away from here for 1 weekend, 1 year. The rugby league was absolutely, astoundingly swamped with emails of protest and we want to go back to Newcastle. Newcastle's the only place that can do it, and that's bloody rugby. Look what the New Zealand boss of the New Zealand Rugby League said, that he would always take his team to that cathedral on the hill. It's the most impressive stadium he's ever played on and worked on anywhere in the world. Now, these aren't people who say those things because they've been paid to say it, or because they've got no knowledge. They're people who say it because it just is unique. It just is nice to have such a venue in the middle of a vibrant city that can provide all the things around it that they need: hotels, leisure, eateries, drinkeries, all of that sort of things on the doorstep. And that's why Newcastle United and St James's Park, or whatever stadium they put there, will always be of interest to people. So that for me, they're just people who don't want to be wrong. It's the same. If we're getting the Euros, oh well, it's because the Saudis aren't interested. If we hadn't got them, guess what they would have said? The Saudis aren't interested. It's absolute rubbish, and it irks me greatly. I mean, I don't mind being delusional. At my age, I can be where I like. But the fact is that we're even talking about the chairman and about the management. When he's needed to feel to come in and do something, he's come across and he's done it. Ask Mr. Mitchell, who shut the door on him as he was going out the stadium. Ask Liverpool, who played hardball when they wanted a cheap Isaac. He said he wanted 150 million. Well, despite the fact all the pro-Liverpool journalists keep writing it's 130 million, they don't tell Liverpool fans that, yeah, but the chairman said you can have him, but you're going to pay all his bonuses. Well, there was 17 million pounds worth of bloody bonuses owed to Isaac, so they had to pay that. So that even if it's 130 plus 17, that's 147 million. Well, you didn't do bad, chairman. You didn't do bad. So, all of that. And every time he speaks about Newcastle United, what does he say? I want Newcastle United as number one. And I'm still of the view that come 2034, Newcastle United will be central to their celebrations in Saudi Arabia. We will be part of it. I'm convinced of it. And in terms of the new ground, people speculating about it's this, it's that, the other. I'm still convinced, and this is a very personal view, the biggest problem at the moment about us not hearing about it is that the planning for the stadium that's being done in Saudi Arabia is the bit that matters. He wants to be number one. And if he wants to be number one, he wants a number one stadium. And that means 100,000 people. I'm sorry, I know there's the delusional George coming out again. I'm convinced that's what it's about. They don't just want a good stadium. They want the best stadium, and they want a stadium that will make people want to come, and we'll see boxing, we'll see all kinds of it in our stadium. And that's why I think it's where it is. And don't forget, again, back to an old favourite of mine, in the past when we've had stadium troubles, like we lost the World Cup in 66 or whenever it was because we couldn't cooperate with the council and they wouldn't let we build an extension, so we lost the games. The games went to Middlesbrough. Well, in those days, we were part of the poor lot. We didn't have any money. Well, world's turned on. We're the only ones that's got any money because of PIF, thank God. The council haven't got any money, and nobody else. And because some of the obstacles that were in our way, like the Castle Leazes listed buildings, well, we own them now, for God's sake. So, there's so much positive. And if that's me being delusional again, well, fine. You're going to hear a lot more of it as far as I'm concerned. But I think to use all that to play down that PIF or lose interest is madness. And to the anti-Saudi brigade, the longer you go on, the more Saudi Arabia is opening up. Look where Saudi Arabia was before we had the takeover, and look where it is now, how it's changing, how their life's changing, how things outside are changing, how we are bloody changing, for God's sake. You want to talk about human rights? Have a quick look over your shoulder at what's happening all over the country. You know, we're locking up 80-year-old people who take a Sharpie and write a bloody notice on a bit of cardboard and are getting put in jail. Really, really, you know, I mean, so, you know, they're all there. Let's have another anti-Saudi demonstration outside the ground and see if they can do better than 5 this time. I don't think they will. I think they would struggle to get that 5. So, you know, it disappoints me that, like Neil said, that there's that group of people in our fan base who will hang on to anything negative just to have a say, just to make some noise, because that's all it is as far as I'm concerned. And the people who are worried about Lasers Park, I mean, I know one of the leading lights in it. I'm not going to mention her name. My view as advice to them when I've talked to those people I do know is write the bloody piff and tell them what you want to do with Lasers Park. You might get a nice surprise. They might help you to put it right and do something about it and make sure that there's something left. So I'll stop there because I'm going onto a rant now. But I see nothing but bright things for Newcastle United under Piff, and I'm not going to be deterred from that or prevented from saying that by any negative from any quarter, whether it be fans, council, anybody else.
I think what we also remember, Steve, is that the announcement during the week about the Euros was to tell us how many games we were getting. It wasn't to tell us we're getting the Euros. It was to tell us the rounds. Yeah. It was the breakdown of where the games were, how many games were going to be each location. That's all it was. That's all that the event that took place around the country in each location was about. So, you know, we knew that the Euros were coming anyway. So.
Yeah, of course we did. Okay, we're getting a little bit of crackle on your microphone, George, just for your personal knowledge. You might be able to sort something out with that, I think, when you go off tonight. We can hear you, but we're getting a bit of feedback and we're getting a bit of crackle, just so you know. I want to move on to the announcement that was made by the club about the trip to Marseille on the 25th of November. Key information regarding safety in Marseille. Supporters are strongly advised by French police not to visit the Old Port, Vieux Port, the area of Marseille during their stay. For safety measures, supporters are advised not to wear anything that will identify themselves as Newcastle United supporters or congregate in large groups on the evening of Monday the 24th of November or all day on and Tuesday the 25th of November. Street crime, including pickpocketing, can take place in Marseille. Supporters should be vigilant at all times, take sensible precautions and ensure that they have valid travel insurance. Supporters should not hang flags or any items of club colours in the city of Marseille. Anyone without a valid match ticket should not travel to Marseille. Matchday mandatory fan meeting point in Marseille. The only place supporters can gather is at the mandatory fan meeting point at the Place de Gillette. The requirement has been put in place by local authorities and the police in Marseille. The Place de Gillette, fans can gather here from 11 o'clock onwards on Tuesday the 25th of November. There are a number of bars and restaurants in the vicinity of this area, and supporters will be allowed to drink here whilst the DJ will be present at the meeting point. There will be ample toilets in this location. Mandatory transport to the Stade Velodrome will leave from this location, and supporters must be in this location by 4:30. There will be no exceptions for any supporters making their way to the stadium. Moving on to the trip to the stadium, supporters must travel to the stadium via the mandatory metro service, which is policed by the local authorities in Marseille. The metros will depart from the fan meeting point. The first metro will be at 4:30, and it's advised that supporters take the earliest metro possible to get to the stadium safely and in good time. So that's all you need to know. It does go on and on and on a little bit. There is also a list of prohibited items, laser pointers, pyrotechnics, knives and weapons, tools. Vuvuzelas is on that list, and rigid flagpoles. But yeah, you get the picture. But quite
rocket launchers, submachine guns,
long umbrellas, and animals. Animals as well. dear me, yeah. But anyway, it's on there. It's on the club website, and nufc.com. I've also got a link to it, so if you want to click on there, just for your understanding. But yeah, Mitch, what was your take on hearing that? I mean, it's we know it's a bit micey, but what's your thoughts on the
Marseille is a troubled city. City with high levels of deprivation and segregation and non-inclusivity. It has an immigrant problem. It has a crime problem. There's a reason most of the best French gangster films are set in Marseille. It's not a coincidence. It wasn't a nice place to visit as a fan when we went there. When Didier Drogba knocked out, and I don't suspect it's going to be much better. I do hope the fans are treated better than when we were there last time. Not herded into paddocks and not herded into holding cells and kept there. If they're saying get the earliest metro possible, 4:30, that means something like 5 to 5.5 hours for a 2-hour game. It is a place you've got to watch your back and your front and both sides. There will potentially be violence dressed up as football-related violence that has nothing to do with football whatsoever. There are opportunists wishing to jump on the back of that. It has a severe drug problem. It has the highest murder rate in France, I believe. So there's all sorts of potential issues. As ever, football fans are painted in such a terrible light. That said, I did a little bit of research, and this advice seems to be standard for nearly every set of fans going to Marseille. German clubs have had almost word-for-word advice. So this must be coming from whoever the equivalent of their fans' liaison officer is, and the very overworked and undermanned Marseille police, one would imagine. And so how their solution to manage everything, rather than treat people like adults, is to herd we around in groups. After telling them not to congregate in groups, they tell them, but then you must be at this place where there's plenty of bars and toilets and places you can have something to eat, and then you must get on the metro at this time. Well, you might as well line them up either side of the metro tracks and hand them bricks to, let them have a go. It's contradictory. It assumes an 80s level of football violence mentality. And it is a very difficult city. There's no doubt about that. Yes, Bill, it's a typical port city, particularly a typical Mediterranean port city.
Yeah.
And so it is a place you've got to be exceptionally careful, but it feels like buzzkill, all the advice given. And it's look what happened last time we went to PSG. There are issues in France that are masqueraded as football issues, but they're not really. It's an opportunity for certain groups of individuals to hide behind football violence as a way to increase their income by criminal means. And so everybody going there knows they've got to be careful. Everybody knows. Yes, Popeye's French Connection goes back to that. 22 Bullets, fantastic film. If you want to watch it in French, L'Immortal, absolutely brilliant film. All set in Marseille. They all are. There's a reason for it. And so I just don't know what to make of it. I feel like we're being dragged backwards in time a little bit. So it's a real shame that it's going to overcloud the football. I just don't want to see our fans herded into paddocks and then baited by police for following instructions. Because I know that happened last time we were there. And I know that's years ago, but horrendous. I don't want any of that for our travelling fans. We deserve better than that.
Steve?
Beware of men in trilbies running around chasing people. Sounds like that. I read an article that said that Marseille is very much the melting pot of France in terms of describing how French cities are now. Marseille is quite unique, however, in its location because it has people from Algeria, Morocco, it has the Italian culture, it has traditional French culture, it has some of the French island culture. It's now got Algerians, it's got from Azerbaijan, it's got the Libyans, you name it. There's every type of mix, and they said rather than the drug situation that seems to pervade most big cities now, rather than classing it as rather like sort of something that's run by El Chapo or by Pablo Escobar or something like that, it's more a city that resembles some of America's big cities. Like, and the description was, don't think it as the drug city. I think it's more gang orientated, like The Wire. If you remember the TV series The Wire, where the city's divided up. So, like any major city, you go into the wrong place, you can have issues. The main thing is that people have just got to now follow the rules. It's unfortunate that some people have bought tickets and probably think that they can just wander around Marseille, or thought they could, with freedom, and that they're now going to be tied. Perhaps the club could have issued some of this advice before people went out and bought tickets. It might have put some people off. Some people might now be a little bit worried about going. But as Mitch says, this is something that's coming out for every club that goes to Marseille. And basically what it sounds like what's happened is the Marseille authorities have created a blueprint that is used no matter which football club is going. And that's the blueprint that gets followed for every single game. It makes it easier for them to follow. It makes it simple. It makes it straightforward. And for every Euro game, and probably for French games in some respects, although we've seen some crazy situations involving Marseille and French clubs over the last few seasons. It's just a blueprint, just uplifted and used time and time and time again. As I say, I'm just a bit concerned that the club put this out well after the tickets have been sold. I think the club should have had a bit more responsibility in terms of advising fans what it was actually like, rather than leaving it themselves. This is not going to be your ordinary trip overseas. It's not going to be the usual gathering and flag waving and such like. It's going to be something that potentially is going to leave a nasty taste for some people, or make it uncomfortable or not enjoyable till they get in the ground. And I hope that that's as far as it goes. I hope it's not like as Mitch described when we were there in the 2000s, early 2000s, where it was a hot summer day, treated like cattle, quite frankly, inside the ground as well as outside. So, but I mean, I won't go back to the time in Barcelona where you could wander around Barcelona. It's not a sort of city you can wander around so much now, and you can think you're fine, and then it does have its issues with pickpocketing and robberies and things like that. I know people who have fallen into that. And then on the match day, you go into the place and you stand around. But then we were bussed in, and I'm going back to 1997. We're still being bussed in. And not only that, but we didn't even have our tickets. We weren't given the tickets until you were getting off the bus. And then you had to go through 2 lines of police security at the ground, stand around in a great big car park. And then you were hustled into the buses to leave the ground as well. So it's nothing new when you're going to European games, I'm afraid, or it's a reflection of the particular society around that particular club. in that particular environment, in that particular city, in that particular country. So unfortunately, that's the way it is.
Yeah, George. I mean, European adventures are all very exciting, but it does hurt to be, on the side of caution. And
Well,
I think it's well played by the club on this, really, just to reiterate and re-emphasise how how this particular trip is rather dangerous compared to some others.
well, especially in Marseille. In my world, ships don't dock in Marseille if they can help it. And if they do, the crew don't go ashore. The British Navy would never dock in Marseille if there is exercises in the Mediterranean, and the Matlows wouldn't be allowed to go ashore in Marseille. It's the Wild West. On top of that, you have a French government, which is like so many governments like our own, who equate football supporters with criminals. Well, they're just football supporters. And treat with as such. It's just outrageous. And it's not just Marseille in France. Look at the goings on in Paris, which eventually, through pressure from the EU, the French government had to admit it was the police's fault. All the trouble that they had, it wasn't the supporters at all. But people forget that bit. It's just sad for me that it's another example of how governments latch onto something to offset their problems on other people. And it just so happens football supporters are an easy target. But, I remember with horror the stories that Neil and Steve came back from Marseille with before. And it hasn't changed. And I certainly know in my world, people on ships wouldn't by choice go ashore in Marseille. They'd stop on the bloody ship rather than go ashore in Marseille. And the British Navy doesn't go ashore in Marseille. So it's sad, but something we have to live with. Not aided either by the fact that everything to do with football, when governments get involved, tends to be a knee-jerk reaction, a la Maccabi Tel Aviv and Aston Villa. That wasn't about anti-Semitism. It was about controlling bloody hooligans. But what did our government do? Oh, there's a nice thing to hang something on. Let's call it anti-Semitism, and contradicted their own police advice on the whole thing. Made complete idiots of themselves. But it's football, you see, so you get away with it. Well, I don't know how we overcome it, but it's not before time. I think supporters groups should get together and start hammering away at the new football czar when eventually appoint one without somebody that's giving the Labour Party a big donation. No, it's a mess. It's a mess, and as I say, I'm envious of the fact that so many of our good friends and colleagues are going to Marseille. But I'm also anxious, having had the experience before, of how they'll be treated. And Neil's right. We don't want that for our fans. We're better than that. We deserve better than that. And but it's right that the advice is being given, because it is not has no history of being a friendly place at all. Not just for football supporters, but for visitors to the port part of that city.
Okay, we are halfway through the show. It is time for the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at their website, skipsandbins.com. Contact them at www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at their website, mrvickies.co.uk. Email info@mrvickies.co.uk or telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to our fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. 2 crew driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels and no interchanges. Hot and cold snacks and drinks available on the coach, all excursions included. Their website, unitedgrouptravel.com. Email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com. Telephone 01670 632 460 or 0791 666 4174. Just £30 per person deposit. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And if you like listening to us as a podcast, you can go to Sports Social Podcast Network or to iTunes, Spotify, or other podcast providers. If you want to support the show, then hit the subscribe button. It's free. We do 7 shows a week. Hit the little thumb up under the video, which is the like button, or click share to share to your social media. You can also join the channel on YouTube by hitting the join button for as little as $1.99 a month. If you want to become an NUFC Matters member, you can go to nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk. It's a £25 one-off fee. You get your pen, you get your badge, a key ring, you get your beer mat and your fridge magnet and your membership card, nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk for that. And we have an event early next year, 13th of February 2026, an evening with Beardsley, Waddle and Gascoigne takes place at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House. To buy your tickets for that event, go to the box office 0191 243 1171 or Tyne Theatre and Opera House.uk. And a week today, it is the Christmas do, an evening with Warren Barton and Joe Allen. Sid will be spinning the discs, and Adam Henderson's coming along to do a little acoustic set as well. Tickets are £12 from nufcmatters.co.uk, and Age UK North Tyneside is benefiting from the fundraising on the night. So get yourself along, should be a good do. Still some tickets left, and the book has arrived now, the promoter and the photographer. It is a tenner plus the postage. Go to the website nufcmatters.co.uk. All proceeds from that book are going to Age UK North Tyneside, the dementia section. So thanks to everybody who has purchased it. I've sent them all out. We're going to have a disclaimer. These tweets have been sent in by our lovely viewers. They are not the opinions of anyone on this panel, especially me, and not the opinion of...
It's time to put your glasses on, Steve.
Get your glasses on. We'll start with a few signs. Well, it's good for Mike. Mike is hard. An unfortunate sign there on the side of a van when it's open. Went out for Chinese food, and I told them I have a severe allergy to seafood, and this was on the check when I paid. No, effing shrimp, or he die. Excellent. Hey, darling, use my ATM card. Take any amount out, go shopping, and take your friends out too. To lunch too. PIN code is... Love you, honey. Thank you, Jimmy, for that one. It made me laugh. Sir. Yes, the eating instructions, open flaps and munch.
Oh, right.
No phones in the bathroom. If you are in the bathroom for more than 10 minutes, a manager will conduct a smell test, and if they do not smell any number 2, you will be written up from the management. This is great, this one. Found this belter in Tesco's. Harry Potter Invisibility Cloak, £15. Well, it works, lads. It definitely works. And free tattoo removal.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah, definitely. This is a novel idea for Christmas, lads. Hide a poo. Simply go, cover, and go.
Yeah,
Stop scooping and start living. Brilliant. People just do that anyway. Star Wars one, lads. Only a Star Wars fan will see it.
Oh, yes.
It's a trap.
Very good. It is a trap, of course. And cleaning out my dad's attic, came across this vintage motorcycle riding mask. Goggles not included. I didn't know my dad was into motorcycles, but he's got a lot of leather gear. And why do people always laugh at my name, says this lady. She did get some replies from Genitalia. I know how you feel. From Buster Hyman. I get that all the time. And Hugh Janus, same here.
Yeah, me.
Never ever will I delete Facebook. This was Head Honcho who said, someone stole my porch. I opened my door and fell. You can't have anything in Detroit.
Me.
Jesus Christ was originally going to be named Gary until Mary stubbed her toe.
Oh,
And whoever drops the fiver first loses. Winner keeps a fiver when you want to watch the football in peace.
good idea.
Great idea, yeah. Men spend hundreds of pounds on sexy lingerie for their women, then stand at the bottom of the bed like this.
Dear.
Another Facebook name. In the jungle, the mighty jungle, the lion sleeps tonight. A Wimberway, a Wimberway, a Wimberway. Dirks, Fergs, and Hedgehogs, the Asherton Guide to Wildlife. New Ladybird book for Christmas. And if you're not getting taken away in an ambulance with sparkle panties, Oompa Loompas, and 2 crying Easter bunnies, you're just not living your life. A rare photo of a baby carrot clinging to its mother before being eaten by a heartless vegan. Stop this cruelty now.
Brilliant.
And talk about tattoos. We've had some good ones on here over the last couple of weeks. Here's another belter.
Wow.
What on earth? What possessed him to get the pigeon in the first place?
That's fantastic.
Barber, how would you like this cut? Do you know Alex Murphy from RoboCop? Say no more. And lunch with Nan, says Sophie. Ian replied, did she play Hounslow and keeping up appearances? Since the snow came, all the wife has done is look through the window. I mean, if it gets any worse, I'll have to let her in.
Oh, yeah.
And I saw a sign that made me piss myself today, lads. Toilets closed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would. It would. Yeah.
I've just been promoted to running all of Old MacDonald's farms. I'll be the CIEIO. And the other day I wrote a song about a tortilla, but it wound up being more of a rap.
Oh.
He's 104 years old. What's your excuse? He's had more time to train.
I've on that one.
And co-joined twins, Abby and Brittany, look unrecognisable now. Jason replied, unrecognisable? How many people with 2 heads do you know?
Yeah.
And do twins have the same penis length? No, my kid's dad and my husband are identical twins, but husband's much bigger. What the hell? I just ended a 5-year relationship. Are you okay, says Raj? Yeah, it's okay. It wasn't my relationship. Only a fool would buy IKEA furniture. Instead, I just download the instructions and keep emailing their service department to say that I'm missing a piece until they ship me all the pieces over a 6-month period.
Brilliant.
Don't try that at home, kids. Rob Coulter, scrap outside part in school on grass if anyone wants it. Derek replies, you're a fully grown man, offering people for a scrap outside of school. Get a grip, mate, and keep off the drink. Rob goes, what are you on about, man? Muppet, scrap metal, keyboard warrior. Oh, God. Who's stopping me? The ankle monitor, replied Joey. Len says, I'm not at work today, so after a little trip out to Corbridge, I'm back home and I've turned on the TV. I'm not a vaginal dryness sufferer who likes a bet, nor am I planning my funeral. I suspect I'm not in ITV's expected target audience. Yeah. I'm going to be honest, I've thought that many times when I've seen the adverts at that time in the afternoon. Finish up with this one. If only there had been something to prevent this, lads.
Oh yes. Brilliant.
If you've got any tweets you want to send us and feature on the show, email us nufcmatters8092@gmail.com or send one to me and the lads on Twitter, X, and we'll get them out on the show next week. Now, I did promise you at the start of the show a little surprise, and we do something like for charity usually at Christmas. We do it all year round, of course, on here for AIDS UK's North Tyneside Dementia branch. But last year, we didn't get a chance to do this, so we're doing it this year. We are bringing a Christmas single out. Don't worry, it's not me singing. It is the Felon Male Voice Choir. And I went across to see the lads last year, being a Felon lad myself. And I asked them, after seeing them used very briefly by Newcastle United Football Club, if they would be up for recording a version of the Bladen Races for me. And the idea was obviously to bring it out and raise some money over Christmas for charity. So this is out on Monday, the Bladen Races by the Felon Male Voice Choir. It'll be out on all downloadable streaming services, Apple Music, Spotify, etc. And you'll be able to purchase it for 99 pence. All proceeds after the streaming services costs, of course, which I think are like 2 or 3 pence, will be going to the charity. We're hoping it's going to be a big success. The press release has gone out this week, and I know the lads will be doing Radio Newcastle on the 24th of this month. So there is going to be a bit of publicity about it. Hopefully it spirals and gets over the line. But we did a little interview with Joe Allen, who's obviously been on the podcast quite a few times. He will come back at some point, but he's busy doing a lot of these AA meetings and being very proactive in that. And he's currently in the process of having a documentary made. But Joe lost both of his parents to dementia, and he took a little bit of time out just to discuss, where the money's going to and how important it is to help dementia.
It's an illness.
And we'll play the full video at the end of the show. I hope you can help us with that. It's only going to be 99 pence. I know some of you will struggle with the technology.
Can I add a personal link, Steve?
I'll be sending everybody a link out, who's part of it. But
my grandfather, John Henry Mitchell, Neil's great-grandfather, was a member of the Felon Male Voice Choir for many years. And my grandmother was in the ladies' choir as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Great stuff. Well, thanks to the lads. I know they've had to wait a year for this to come out, but we finally got there in the end. We did want to do it for Christmas, and we just thought it would be a nice way to do it. And very apt. We couldn't have planned it if we tried. That, of course, Newcastle United have chosen to come out the Bladen Races now as opposed to coming out the local heroes. So it's a very topical thing at the moment. So, we didn't plan that, but that's great. Good to see Steve Hasty front and centre singing with pride, says Stu. Joe speaks really well about dementia and Alzheimer's. My dad suffered for 10 years and Mum cared for him at home as an NUFC season ticket holder. He loved Bladen Races, lovely gesture. Nice that. Thank you everybody for your kind comments. Okay, I will plug that at the end. We'll play the full video at the end so you'll be able to get a chance to see it. There was a lot of questions came in earlier on. I do want to point out one thing. Somebody said, Paul Smart, he says, can I just thank Supermac and John Allen for their support on the 1st of November at Whitley Bay Football Club in a big charity event in honour of my daughter, who we recently lost. £30,000 for RNLI and NEAA gents. Thank you, Paul. Well done to John and the Supermac for that. Okay, let's take a question. Lee G came up with this one. He says, question for you all. Out of curiosity and speculation, where would you draw the line and say changes are needed? And that doesn't have to be a manager change. That could be players moved on, etc. I'll take this first. Now, I think we need to really just calm down a little bit, because I think there's been a lot of overreaction over the last couple of weeks because of the 2 defeats away from home to West Ham and Brentford. I think there's been a lot of negativity about players and management combined. In a month's time, it could all look quite different, with Wissa due to return potentially for the Everton game, Livramento and Hall both back in the side, you would imagine, if fully fit. And we could be seeing a reverse of fortunes, and I think there's a tendency just to overreact, Mitch, sometimes, and I get it, but the away form has been poor. We've rightly called it out on here, but there has been a little bit of a free for all on the likes of Dan Burn, for example. In particular, he's been given a lot of criticism, and Eddie Howe has got it in the neck from lots of people this week. People saying, you never criticised Eddie Howe. Well, he's got credit. He has got credit in the bank. But but what's your feeling on Lee's comment there? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, I think I made plenty of criticism on Thursday night personally, but
you did, yeah.
Players, we need another number 9, even with Wissa fit for me. We need another number 9, a proper pacey central forward. And the thing we're missing from our midfield is what Eric Cantona would describe as a water carrier. A Didier Deschamps. Someone who's not spectacular, but someone who can get hold of the ball and then distribute the ball safely to people who can do something spectacular with the ball. Or a deep-lying destroyer quarterback type like a Xabi Alonso. One of those two. Because it's been shown when we play that midfield three that Brighton do it very effectively. They take all three of them out with one single ball. And because they're playing in a very flat line and there's nobody able to sit a little bit deeper just to intercept and break play up. We can talk about Elliot Anderson, but he's gone. He's not our player. And would he have got the opportunities had he stayed? I don't think he would have done. And I think his game's developed because he's had the opportunities. Also, though, I know Forest fans out here who aren't happy with him playing in a deep lying role. They think it takes away from what he delivers further up the pitch, which is an interesting one. But that's by the by. Also, I'm thinking somebody better than that. World class. I can't name a name because I've not done my homework on it. It's something that I've been mulling over the last couple of weeks only. That's somebody that would be a point of difference into that midfield. Maybe he wouldn't play every game. Would be useful to change games, to affect games, to protect the lead, because we've been unable to do that in the last two games. And so I think that's where we need to look at. And for me, we need to look at the fullback situation because 2 injuries has left us shy. So we need either another fullback who can cover both sides, who maybe won't necessarily play every game, or we need, with due respect to Hall, a world-class left-back.
Steve?
And give Hall some proper competition.
I agree entirely on the requirement for a defensive midfielder. We do play flat. We've alternated. We've tried Tonali, done it well when he's had the opportunity, but I think you lose a little bit of Tonali's play when he plays that much deeper. Although you've noticed in the last few games when he has played, he's picking the ball up from the back two, the 2 central defenders. He's picking the ball up from them, and I mean, in both the Brighton and the Brentford game, he controlled an area of that midfield because nobody pressed him, but he didn't go forward with the ball. He was like, he played almost as a link man without doing too much. But I think there's an awful lot more to his game than that. I'm not criticising him, by the way. That's just the way it was. And I think you look at our midfield and the changes that were made in the midfield, especially in the last game, Brentford, and there was no change in performance. There was no sort of step forward. You know, we lost Joe Linton, then we took Tonali out of the game, then Bruno went out of the game. The 3 that came in made absolutely no difference, and that for me was worrying. The fact that you're making changes, and the whole purpose of making a change, well, there's 2 reasons. One, it's either an injury, or secondly, you're trying to change the dynamic of a game. You're either already in the lead and you're trying to hold it, or you're struggling and you want to change that's going to be a positive change. There was nothing positive about any of the changes that were made in the midfield in that particular game. So I do think we need a central midfielder. Where we get one from and whether it's very difficult to find a central midfielder who's defensive, and I know exactly what Mitch is saying about the water carrier. You know, you look at the way Chelsea have managed to always pick up a Makelele, for example. You know, back in the day, and then you know Mourinho was very much a one for having someone that just pinged the ball around. I mean, he even went and got the ultimate water carrier to play for him for a season at Chelsea, in Didier Deschamps. But there's a young lad at Man United who's not getting a game. Kobe Manu, and maybe he's the sort of lad that you could come in. He's got an engine about him, but he's also very much more a defensive than an attacking midfielder. He came in the Euros and played for England and performed quite admirably. And then strangely hasn't got a look in. Whether there's something going on at Man United or whether it's just the case of for the last two managers his face doesn't fit, I'm not too sure. If you wanted to really step up and you wanted to look overseas, you would look at someone like Locatelli at Juve. He is very much a defensive holding midfielder of the typical Italian mold, if you like. We look further up front, and even when Wissa comes back, I agree that we need a striker. We need somebody that is the target. It's not a criticism of Valdemar, who has been the standout player in most of our Premier League games this season. But he's now having to come deeper and deeper and deeper to pick up the ball. They are following him everywhere he goes. His link-up play is absolutely fantastic for such a big man, but he's not a player who can play with his back to goal. I've sent you guys a little video snippet of all of his goals that he scored in the last couple of seasons in Germany before he came to us. Very few of those goals did he have his back to goal in turn. Most of the goals were balls that were fed through to him. There were penalties, or there were balls that were crossed, and he was in the box in the right place. And a lot of them were also where he was running at the defenders, and they just don't have a clue what he's going to do next. His feet are so quick, left, right, left, dropping the shoulder, moving nimbly through, and for a big man, he does it really, really well. So I don't see him as the way that we're playing as the target man, and he's not the answer, but he's the answer in a different position possibly. But we do need a striker. Mitch, you mentioned on your show the other night about when you were doing the Ask Neil section, and it was talked about the lad that used to be at Brentford, Ivan Toney. Now, the problem there with Ivan Toney is that Ivan Toney is on, as you said, 400 grand a week. The bigger problem is that if he did come out, it's not just the fact he wouldn't be on 400 grand a week. It was the fact that the taxman will hammer him for all the tax he's due over the last 2 seasons. So that's where the big issue comes, and that's why, believe it or not, why Steven Gerrard didn't take the job at Glasgow Rangers. It didn't quite fit the family dynamic. The family dynamic meaning that the taxman was going to come after him for an absolute boatload of cash. So I looked. I didn't realise as well. One of the players that I'd been shouting about as a short term with you guys was Mitrovic, and I didn't realise he'd left. A lot he had, and is now applying his trade in Qatar. So that was quite a surprise, and I think he might have been the target man. I noticed as well he wasn't even in the Serbia squad the other night for their World Cup qualifying game. He didn't make the first team and he didn't make the bench. I don't know whether he's carrying an injury or whether he's just no longer considered good enough. You know what Mitro's like. He's probably fallen out with the manager, the coach, bloke who drives the bus, the works, you know. But there aren't that many options around. And I think what we have to do is we have to change our style. We've adapted our style, we haven't really adapted our style. We've brought in Valdemar, but we're not getting into the areas. The wide men are not getting in the areas. They're not getting the crosses to them. We're not utilising them in the air in the box at all. So I think we need to sort that out on the coaching pitch, on the training pitch. I think Eddie it's a bit of a conundrum for him, and I think half the problem is that he's just not getting any time on the training pitch with any of his players because of the Saturday/Sunday, Tuesday/Wednesday, and then back in again. And we're spending very, very little time. And I think Eddie is the sort of coach that desperately needs to have his system drummed into his players week in, week out. We talk about intelligent footballers, but footballers often tend to be only as intelligent as the previous game. and they need it drummed into them exactly what system is being played this week and this week and this week and this week, whether it's the same system, whether it's a tweak of a system or a totally different system. They need it hammered into them, and Eddie's the sort of coach that hammers it into them on the training pitch. And I think we're struggling because he's not getting them on the training pitch. It's very much recovery training that we're doing. It's not tactical. It's fitness recovery. It's that type of thing. Just because of the sheer amount of traveling that we're doing and the sheer amount of games that are catching us up. Maybe that's also indicative of his squad not being strong enough. We may have the numbers, but maybe we haven't got, I don't think, the quality within the squad where you can take out someone of Bruno's caliber, for example, or Tonali's caliber, and bring somebody else in who is of equal stature, or who can raise a game in the manner that they can, and control a game in the manner that when they're on song, those two can. Maybe he's turned into a George greedy little duck, I don't know. But it's just the way I'm looking at it at the moment. I think there's a lot of spinning plates when it comes to Newcastle United, and there's a lot of imponderables. There's a lot of questions. We can see certain things. We don't know. We don't have the answers. We just have the vision to see, but we don't know how to put it right. Eddie's the only person who can put it right. And how many times on here have we said that's why he gets paid the big bucks? That's why, this is the difficulty. Unfortunately, Newcastle United is full of 52,000 managers, but there's not 52,000 coaches. There's only the one coach.
Yeah. What do you think, George?
Well, I agree with what the lads are saying. My ideas would be very similar. I find it interesting the two lads talked about water carriers. That's exactly how Thomas Tuchel described Elliot Anderson last night after the match, that he was England's water carrier. But it's rightly so. He's gone. Had he been younger, and I've said it on here before, to find a holding midfielder who could close the game down. Had he been a little bit younger, I would have given that job to Fabian Schär. He did it brilliantly for Switzerland just before he gave up his international career, and got Switzerland through games that they had no right to get through. But that's the wrong time of his career to be started thinking about that with Fabian Schär. There are one or two players around in Italy. Steve's mentioned one at Juve, but there are others. And that's where I would go looking for the sort of person you were talking about, because that's how they play. Well, that's how their top teams tend to hold on to games. They have people who can close games down with a great deal of skill, and that's been the forte for the last God knows how long. And some famous Italians who became managers who were that sort of player as well. And up front, well, it's so frustrating. I'd go all the way back to where we started with this. People that were criticising Wissa about the injury. Wissa's never had an injury. That's his first bloody injury. He didn't ask for it. And I think things will be different when he comes back. But I still think we could do with a presence either alongside or just backing off Valdemar. But I would suggest alongside. A new Mitrovic would have been ideal in my opinion, but I think he's past that now. That's what they need to be looking for in my opinion. I'm still of the view that Eddie gets the best he can out of the players that we've got. And I'm not going to go over that, remind you how many are still playing who used to play when we had Steve Bruce as a bloody manager. And he manages them all right. We're not far away from where we were this time last year, believe it or not. And it came right. Now I'm still convinced it will this time. But Eddie needs to get the team on the pitch, as Steve says, is sort of manager that needs to drum it into the team what they're going to do. But there have been occasions when, and Brighton is the prime example. You can have the best midfield three in the world, but if a team finds a way going through you, which is exactly what Brighton did, And fair enough to Kev on Fans Forum, our resident coach. He often talks about we're being too flat, which is what the lads have been talking about. Holding midfield, somebody who can close the game down, hold on to a lead, and just destroy teams when we need to have a rest and that sort of thing, and sort out what we're going to do up front with Valdemar and another.
Okay, coming towards the end of the show tonight, slightly shorter show, just with no Premier League action, but we've still got time to cram one of these. The day I met, where we asked you to send in photographs of you meeting somebody from Newcastle, past or present, and it's thanks to Ben Porter, who sent us this photograph in of him meeting Kevin Keegan at a talk in Northwich in the Northwest. And Ben was the only Newcastle United fan in attendance. And he said he had a great night. What a man Kevin Keegan is. But thank you for sending that in, Ben. If you want to send in a photograph and share it with the NUFC Matters community, then you can email us at nufcmatters8092@gmail.com, and we will feature it on the show on a Friday night. And that's the end of the show tonight. Thank you to everybody for tuning in. Thanks to the moderators. Thanks to George, Steve and Mitch. And we're going to play out with The Blade and Races by the Felon Male Voice Choir, which goes on sale on Monday morning. And it is in aid of Age UK North Tyneside. Enjoy it, and I will see you with the show tomorrow. Take care, lads.
Good night, lads. Good night.